Yeah, we can still hear it. Okay.
Good afternoon. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is Angela Brown, Project Lead with the YCC Technical Assistance Contract. Thank you all for joining us today. We are going to go ahead and get started. It's 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Just a couple of quick reminders. We will be taking questions or comments throughout the presentation, so please do use the chat box or the Q&A function on the right-hand side of your screen to send in those questions, notes, or comments throughout the presentation, and we will be answering those. Also, at the end of the webinar today, we will have a quick survey that pops up in another window, so please take a few minutes to fill that out. Your feedback is important to us, and we do look at that. So please help us know how we're doing and if there's anything that we can do better or make any changes, or if there's any topics that you'd like some technical assistance on. We really do appreciate that. So those are my housekeeping notes for the moment, so we will go ahead and get started. Today's webinar is Employability Skills in Action. So thank you all for joining us. We're very excited. What we're going to be talking about today, we're going to learn about some updated resources related to specifically the Employability Skills Framework and how to use employability skills in general. And we're going to also talk or hear from one of our YCC grantees and how they're actually using employability skills and embedding that into their program and culture at the school. And then hopefully you'll learn some tips on how you can implement that in your own program. So first up, we're going to hear from Robin Utz from the Department of Education. So Robin, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thanks, Angela. Salutations to everyone. Before I dive into the Employability Skills Framework, I want to talk a little bit about making the case. Employers tell us that they have difficulty filling jobs that require these cross-cutting skills like critical thinking, collaboration, and digital literacy. In a recent study from the Hart Research Associates, this was in 2015, employers cite employability skills as the most important skill on the job, and Manpower conducted a study much like it. In 2006, they cited that a lack of employability skills may contribute to the talent shortage. So again, making that case for employability skills to be taught explicitly to students, and I appreciate your good work with all that involves with employability skills. So I'm going to advance the slide, and must tell you that this group is the first to see some screenshots of some updated resources that we have with Employability Skills Framework. They are not live yet. I just checked the website. Not quite live yet, but giving you a preview of the screenshots and how you might navigate where these resources may be found. So at the top of the screen, it has cte.ed.gov. That is our website. It's everything career and technical education and Carl D. Perkins. Because this employability skills framework was funded as an investment under the Carl D. Perkins Career and Technical Education National Activities Investments, that's why it happens to be housed here. So when you go to this website, you'll find it under National Activities and under the Employability Skills Framework. And when you get to that frame, again, looking to share some updated resources related to the Employability Skills Framework. There are new sections that we've included, and it's exploring the framework, developing skills, resources, and then contact information. So the way this is designed is it really gets you into some tools that you'll be able to use. The sections, again, as screenshots. Oh, I do want to make sure that I tell you there are new videos. So the videos will be first seen by you guys hopefully when we get those live. But we have videos that showcase employability skills and employability skills in action across the country. So showcasing some programs of how they are embedded employability skills. So we're excited to be able to share that with you when it does become live. So again, sections include exploring the framework, developing skills, resources, and contact. This next screenshot shows the framework, our Employability Skills Framework. It is an interactive toolkit, remains as an interactive, and as you click on the areas of applied knowledge, effective relationships, and workplace skills, it pops up, allows you to have a pop-up and describes those and defines what those mean. So further defines what we might mean by communication skills and resource management, et cetera, around those particular skills. In the section of developing skills, really good use of a lesson plan check sheet is included in this, and also some information and some ways that teachers and students may use the framework and may use employability skills in whatever setting they may need. And also included in the resources, again, just a snapshot of some of the resources that will be included on the website that has some updated resources in this. Another resource that's out there I want to make sure that you are aware, and that is the College and Career Readiness Center has developed some products, and they're learning modules. It introduces the framework, it connects the framework to other educational initiatives. It also provides strategies to prioritize employability skills at the state, the employer, the district, and at the individual teacher levels. And then also shows how to integrate employability skills into lesson plans. So that's yet another learning module, resource that's available through the College and Career Readiness and Success Center. We invest that as part of our national activities portfolio as well. So I know that was brief, that was quick. Again, just wanted to give you an update of where we are, and excited to show you some new resources that are coming your way. And, you know, by all means, share your good work with what you're doing. Also, by all means, give us comments and just let us know what you think about the site when that becomes available, and the resources. And also let us know what you might need. Angela, that's what I've got as our updated overview.
All right, thank you so much, Robin, for sharing that. And again, for some of you, that may have been a little bit of a redo. We did have Robin at our YCC National Conference 2 years ago when we were in DC. So she did a presentation then as well. And now there's some new updated stuff, so we wanted to bring her back to share that with you. And she's going to stay on if there's any questions later on as well. So now we're going to transition to hearing from one of our very own YCC grantees. So I'm going to turn it over to Deborah, who's the director at Anson County Schools, and she's going to share with several of her colleagues what they're doing in North Carolina with embedding employability skills into their program. So Deborah, it's all yours.
I'd like to say hello to everyone, and I just want to check to see if you all can hear me clearly.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Well, I'm going to get right into it. When we looked at our Employability Skills Framework, and then we also looked at our generic industry competencies from the industry pyramid, the competency models, we noticed that they actually worked side by side. When I laid both of the frameworks down, they really complemented each other. And so we started with the industry pyramids, and then we merged our focus into the bottom tiers of those pyramids, which covered generic career development skills. We then looked at the industry pyramids from the structure of the Employability Skills Framework. Teachers were given the Employability Skills Framework, the teacher checklist, and they would use this to plan lessons in order to ensure that we were covering these skills. Teachers also received the ESF student checklist, and they would use this to help students see their own career development skills as they progress through the program. The internship evaluation that we use, that document, also parallels with the skills from both the ESF and also our competency or the pyramid. And so everything that we do, we try to make sure that we align with each other so that we can best serve our students. The competencies are specific, and I can say that all of our teachers, when you go into their classrooms, whether they're core or they're project lead the way teachers, that each day they try, well, maybe not every day, but throughout the week, they try to make sure that their lessons address the ESF framework, and also that parallels with the industry competencies that we're using. For example, in Tier 1, we work with personal effectiveness. And then Tier 2, within that same tier, that's integrity. And our counselor goes around to each class, and she talks with students about these different competencies. If you were to come in our school and see our different hallways where we house a lot of our YCC students and staff, these competencies are evident. They're on the walls, they're in the hallways. We try to inundate our staff, or I try to inundate staff and students every day with the Employability Skills Framework and also our industry competencies. I'll come back and say a little bit more, but now I'm going to turn it over to our counselor, and she'll introduce herself to you.
Hello, my name is Kimberly Spencer, and I'm a school counselor here. One of my duties as a school counselor is to complete classroom guidance lessons with YCC students. One lesson that we did in particular was a career wheel lesson, and you can see the pictures on the slide. But in this particular lesson, students explored careers and their pathways, whether it was biomedical engineering, advanced manufacturing, or IT. Students researched information such as jobs, job duties, education, and salary. Students also examined basic workplace and transferable skills necessary for each job. Additionally, each month, I focused on a different employability skill per grade level, and in this particular month, ninth grade students focused on interpersonal skills. So I incorporated this particular skill into the lesson. Students had to discuss why interpersonal skills would be necessary in their job selected. I wanted students to see that no matter which job they selected, interpersonal skills would be necessary.
I also want to jump back real quick. The first slide that we had was talking about our culture. And one thing I do want to say is that that culture or that relationship is the yardstick by which we measure everything that we do. I mean, we all pretty much feel that if we can touch the heart, we can teach and reach the mind. And so the culture that you see in our hallways, in our schools, it is very intentional and deliberate. We firmly believe that, collectively together, we can weave a tapestry of endless possibilities for our students, whether they choose to go to college, whether they choose to step straight into the workforce, or whether they choose to go on to the military. That relationship piece is the most important thing that we do. We have high expectations for our students, and we just say that it's not a question of where you're going, but or when you're going, it's where you're going. And that is the belief of the YCC staff, and we're really excited about our first year graduates this year, and it's going to tell us a lot about what we do and the way we do things. And I feel pretty certain that a lot of our students are going to step straight into some pretty in positions where they are globally prepared and where teachers have prepared them to market themselves very well. We'll go on to the next slide.
Well, my name's Alicia Privet, and I'm a science teacher for the YCC program. And if you look where these career wheels are in the hallway, you can see that we're not only implementing it into the classroom, but the students see it and hear it everywhere that they go. So our lessons have a career connection, and they understand why the content's important. And so we're integrating employability skills in the classroom by deliberately pointing out collaboration strategies and how they're using them and if they're not using them properly. And we feel like this can help them in future careers. And on the next slide, you can see our career competency tiered model. And there are two different variations of how we have them in the classroom. And as you can see, around one of them, we have different careers in science that you don't necessarily think of in a classroom. So the students are visibly seeing the career competencies that are being implemented in the lessons, and then they see how they build up on every level. So our lower level is our 9th graders, and then our 10th graders are that secondary level, but we don't lose those skills from the primary level. And so it continues to build not only in our lessons, but in our focus in the classroom as well.
I want to say real quick before she goes on, it's not just, I mean, we started out with this, and the YCC program was 80 students. Now our program is this is our 4th year, and we're around 317. But because our focus was on careers and making sure that students were concentrators in certain areas, our entire class now, or our entire school, is going towards the same goals that we have in our YCC program. I'm really excited to say that next year, we had 4 pathways this year. Next year, there will be 11 pathways on the high school campus. And the YCC program is a direct link to that becoming fruition. So we're real excited about what's going on with that. All right.
On the next slide, what you can see is something that has been implemented into several of the classrooms for building career skills. On the left-hand side, you have the collaborative group role cards, and this is just a visible reminder for working in groups that you have a task or a role. So these are things that actually come from the Employability Skills Framework, because you have to be able to work with others and manage your time, not only in the classroom in projects, but in your career as well. And so every person, whether you are an errand monitor or you are the timekeeper or the leader, you have a role. And so you are applying the knowledge and workplace skills in the classroom with different groups. You also see the career journal rubric, and the way that I've implemented this into my classroom is that I'm taking everything we do content-wise and connecting it to a career. So the students aren't only looking for the salaries, but they also look at the different job responsibilities and the skills that will be required for them. And so we're trying to bring those employability skills such as teamwork and problem solving to the classroom so that students can see what they're really looking forward to in the future.
I just want to piggyback off of the career journal rubric and also the group role cards. Previously, I was the principal at Anson Early College, and we used those role cards. Those role cards align with employability skills because our students are put in groups, and they don't play the same role each time. And so that is very much like authentic work experience, where you have to work with a group, and sometimes you're in one role, but then you have to fall into another role. It teaches group work, collaborative group work, but then you also have to be an out-of-the-box independent thinker at some time. So it goes hand in hand.
My name is Stephanie Labrie. I am a CTE teacher with the YCC. I teach PLTW engineering classes. And I want to talk about a couple of things that have been a little bit different for me and for us in the CTE realm. One of the things is that we've integrated across the YCC and then has extended across to the entire high school is the Common Instructional Framework. And I know as a CTE teacher, I kind of struggled with this in the beginning with trying to make sure that every day that my students are writing to learn. I'm an engineering teacher. We don't write a lot, especially when we're in the lab manufacturing a piece of equipment or we're figuring out how to do a picture or a photo on the laser cutter. And so what we've done as a staff is made a commitment that every single classroom will use Common Instructional Framework to help support and underpin the employability framework that is shown there as well. I know in my CTE classes that we really, my students start to pick out things and they're like, oh, this is a scaffolding activity, Labrie, and oh, now I see how we're gonna use this skill to learn about things. I ask my students now to reflect more in writing than I had in the past, just so that we can write to learn about what we're doing. Classroom talk was a big one that we normally do in a CTE classroom with working out what's a problem and what are the common solutions. So I think incorporating Common Instructional Framework was a big kind of adjustment point for those of us who teach in CTE, not so much for those who teach in the core world, but this was something that as CTE teachers we talked a lot about and how do we incorporate this in. For me personally, once I made the connections between the Common Instructional Framework and the Employability Skills Framework, it was much easier for me to see how to work those skills into my everyday instruction. Another thing I wanted to just mention was my use of the Employability Skills Framework. I spent a lot of time talking with my students in engineering about engineering careers and what kind of skills are we using in the classroom that would be important on your job as an engineer. And like to use the critical thinking piece. How do we think creatively? How do we think outside the box? How do we use critical thinking skills to solve problems, which is what you're going to do in the work field? How do we work with each other and how do we keep up with people and how do we work with people that we don't like, which is a big issue in, I know a lot of high schools. My students don't necessarily like each other. However, like I tell them, you may not necessarily like everybody you work with, but there's a job that needs to get done. All you have to do is get the job done. And so we incorporate a lot of the Employability Skills Framework as CTE teachers, and that comes a little more natural to us. And so I think combining those two pieces of backbone have really helped beef up my lesson plans and help me become a better CTE teacher and in hitting all of the employability skills rather than assuming that just because I'm a CTE teacher, those skills are going to be taught in my classroom. I incorporate them deliberately now instead of just assuming that they're in place.
Hi, my name is Daniel Burrows. I'm going to be talking about from the traditional teacher standpoint, from the core side. In CTE, a lot of the career and those career competencies are embedded. For a traditional teacher to teach any kind of STEM or STEAM learning environment well, they really need to rethink how they think about their original content. So we started with this YCC lesson plan format. And right there in one of the middle graphs there, the career competencies embedded within the lesson. It's a little hard to see there, but in general, we take whatever career competency the students are reflecting on either that week or bi-weekly from the counselor side, and we embed that into the lesson that we're doing on the core content side. And how it would look in a lesson is, for example, I'm a history teacher, so if we're doing something about Jamestown and the types of people who were coming here, they may research specifically from their career field side. So if they're biomed, maybe they're looking at why people died in Jamestown through diseases. Or if they're engineering, maybe they're looking at like the specific things that were going on with the settlement or the buildings or things of that nature. So just the idea of reflecting on careers from a core standpoint is important because it brings the whole thing full circle. You're not just hearing this, all the stuff about careers and all the things about CTE and biomed and engineering and IT in their those classes. You're hearing it all the time, and you're letting students embrace where their passion is. And I found that just building on students' relevancy and showing them that, yeah, we're learning history, but it builds on what's important to you, and it's helping you get to your ultimate goal with that career readiness and college readiness focus in mind has been pretty amazing.
Another thing we do, since we're talking about, how we incorporate within our lesson plans, the employability skills and also the competencies. Last year, for the very first time, we did a project evening, and the project evening was very successful, and it was based on our pathways and also employability skills. Parents came, community stakeholders came, and students would be available to talk about the projects that they did. I was also, one of our college classes was finishing up on a couple of days ago. It was entrepreneurship class, and they're actually divided up into 4 groups, and they had to create a business. And I'm going to tell you, I was extremely proud. The professor asked me to come in and just observe, and very proud that the kids did a good job. They were using collaborative group work. They were using a lot of things that go right hand in hand with employability skills. Okay.
So hello everyone. I am Kimberly Bryan, and I am the College Transition Specialist, and I will be talking about our Senior Exit Project. And so for the Senior Exit Project, this is YCC's first time having a Senior Exit Project, just because this is our first time having a senior class. And ideally, the students will basically take their pathway and find a problem that is within their pathway. And from that problem, they are supposed to create a solution, and then in the end, they're going to create a final product based on that solution. So on the PowerPoint slide, I have 2 examples that I provided students with in their packet on the left. And so one talks about a problem that's associated with biomedical pathway, and another that's associated with the IT pathway. And then on the right, I actually have a section of a student's chosen problem and solution for her Senior Exit Project. And so basically, the students, it's a semester-long process, and then at the end, they're supposed to have a portfolio that basically has information that tracks everything for the semester, as well as their final product, and they're supposed to present it to the judges. And so they're supposed to tie everything in from basically their entire high school career into this one project, and they will be graded on that, such as when we present to the judges. Actually, our senior boards night was a successful night this past Thursday, and so the judges will grade them not only on voice and eye, but also how it applies to the industry and the overall thing, their pathway as well. And so they complete, as they go about, we basically have them tie everything in from their internships. They reflect on the internships to see how that relates to their problems and what information they can use from their internships to go into it, what they've learned from their college classes and how that ties into their project, what they've learned from their project lead the way classes and how that can go into their project. And then at the end, it's just, once again, a giant project that just ties everything in to help them see that this can all be related to something they're interested in, and then that could be something related in hopefully a future pathway or a future career for them as well.
This slide is a picture of what we will be moving into as a traditional high school next year. Mrs. Davis mentioned in the beginning that our YCC focus has now become a high school focus. The successes that we've had with the YCC and the pathway model that we've chosen and the career readiness and the 21st century skill building and employability skills has been noticed and has been something that we wanted to try to build into our traditional high school where YCC is housed. The current principal of the traditional high school really spent some time in discussing different scenarios and situations with us, and this model is where we're actually moving next year. All of our current ninth graders at the traditional high school all took a career management class this year as their ninth grade year, and what they've done is been introduced to the individual pathways, of which we now have 11 pathways, and they will choose a pathway with which to become a CTE concentrator. So that's going to do a couple of things for the success of our school. One, it's going to help us become much more competent in getting CTE concentrators and getting those work keys assessments that we're really interested in. Also, it will help our students find a focus and help them be able to focus their energy instead of taking a random foods class and then a random agriculture class or maybe a random engineering class, all of which are good classes but don't really necessarily lead down a career path. What we're hoping to do is allow the students to find a career path, find something that they're interested in that they love, and be able to leave high school with a direct link to a future career and really be one up on someone who is leaving another high school who may not have had this experience of having a focused, job-ready preparation in high school. What we've also tried to do with YCC is to extend the YCC career culture throughout our high school. The first pictures that were in the presentation were pictures on our hallways. We now have, as YCC, we have a hallway in one building and a hallway in a second building. And our students were really responsive to all of the things that we were posting in our hallways. Encouraging posters, examples of exemplar work from students, job focus and career focus material. And what we've done is we've now extended that throughout our traditional high school. We now have an industry project room and a career pathway center. We've been able to extend the vision of the YCC and extend the culture of YCC past the hallways of YCC and put those now into a large part of our traditional high school to start bringing in and start developing that career culture throughout the school as we move into and transition into those 11 pathways next year. Once again, these are a few more photos of where we've put in some motivating sayings for students, some other career future focus. Just once again, we want our students to be inundated with a positive environment, a culture that promotes succeeding, promotes for meeting expectations, once again, just a positive environment that they can do what they've chosen to do and want to do. And so these are, once again, quotes that you'll find leading up the stairs going into our YCC program. It is now going to be, we'll extend those once again, and those kind of decorations and those quotes are finding their way into our commons area of our high school, into our cafeteria of our high school. And so we're really doing an update and an overhaul of the whole entire culture of our high school as we look forward into next year. And this last slide for Anson County is some additional resources that we have put up, and I know you will have available on the website, and one of the other ladies can kind of tell you where to find this. But it's the career competencies that we use, the employability skills teacher checklist that you saw in one of the slides. It's the YCC lesson plan format that Mr. Burrows talked about and how we incorporated all of our slides, all of those checklists and all of those employability skills into our lesson plans. And also there's another slideshow that we've used when we went to present to our Board of Education on extending the YCC program throughout the high school. And so there's the Pathway Powers performance presentation is some raw data about the success we've had with our YCC students. And that is the end of our Anson County presentation, so I'm going to turn it back over, and we'll go from there.
All right. Thank you so much. Yes, everyone, please, if you do have any questions, thank you, Anson County, for sharing so much information about what you're doing to incorporate employability skills into your entire program and your entire school. It sounds like you're doing wonderful work. If anyone has any questions or comments, please do send those into us, and we will take time to answer those, whether they're for Anson County or for Robin, who's with the Department of Education, about kind of the overall employability skills framework and resources. And yes, as mentioned, this was sent out in an email ahead of time. We did post all those handouts as well as the slides for this presentation on the YCC Community of Practice, and I put those links, or that link, in the chat box as well. So you can go and download those and have them on your own. So please do send us your questions. But before, or while we're waiting for questions to come in, I have a question that I think would be helpful for, other schools and other programs to learn, and it's somewhat directed at you, Mr. Burrows. If you can talk a little bit about kind of how easy or hard it was for you, as a history teacher. It's not a traditional role that someone might think, including these employability skills, as you talked about earlier as well, and how you are now incorporating that into different lesson plans. Was there any other teachers, or did you have any kind of hesitation at first, and how were you able to get over that? Because it is maybe some additional work to change up some lesson plans to make sure you're incorporating these different skills into the work that you're doing with the students. So can you address that a little bit?
Yeah, good question. I think that a lot of teachers kind of reinvent themselves each year, and even if you're teaching the same content for 5 to 10 years, you may not teach it the same way each time, depending on the students you have. So the way I approached it was, I have this particular bunch of students, and they're focused on careers, they're focused on biomed, they're focused on IT, engineering, advanced manufacturing. So even if I was teaching the same lesson, depending on the group I had that day, it may look a little different. Now, that's a lot of work on you at first, but I found that it just drives everything later on. It drives your discussion questions, it drives your project-based learning activities, it drives any kind of student work. It's knowing your content and standards still, because you're still, you still have to teach to that. But also it's reaching out and getting support where, I don't know a lot about biomed or engineering, but it's going and asking about that or figuring out what the students are doing. So it's a lot of communication involved. I would say what helped us the first year was planning. We would sit down in a PLC type setting and plan together or talk about, okay, this is what students are doing in biomed, or this is what students are learning in IT, and then bridging that gap. Oh, okay, so they're learning about whatever, PowerPoint. So we need to use their skills in PowerPoint here. So they're not doing double work either. It's just they're building on skills they already have. Did that answer all of your question?
Yeah, I think it did. Thank you so much for sharing that. And we do actually have a question that came in the Q&A. Have you had any issues, and this can be for anyone, with the prevailing college-going culture ideology. And they also said your Career Pathways Center is awesome. So can you speak on that? You know, everyone doesn't have to go to college, and it's not the only successful outcome for programs and for students. So have you had any pushback in those areas or any feedback from maybe parents or other students?
I'm Stephanie, the CTE teacher, and I really want to handle this one. I've just had an industry leader from one of the tech schools in our area come and present to my students with the 137 idea, 132 idea, and basically that out of every 10 jobs, 1 will require an advanced degree, 2 will require a bachelor's degree, and 7 will require some type of technical skills certificate or some type of 2-year degree that's a technical degree. That the job market has changed from being a college-going market to being a skill-driven, technical-driven market. And one of the things I think that we're really proud of with the YCC is that we do have that selection of students who are career-focused and college-focused, I should say, and it's been really easy for us to take them and to say, I understand that you're college-focused, but the skills and the employability skills, the lab skills, the CTE skills, the technical skills that I can teach you through the programs that we offer are going to only help you out once you get to college. If you learn these skills with me in biomed, or you learn these skills with me in engineering, or you learn these technical skills with us in IT right now, then you're going to be better off than your peers who didn't have these classes. And so while we do have a real distinct divide between, we have a group of students who are college going, and that is their focus. We've been able to address them really well because we've been able to offer them some college transfer credits. And so when it comes to their junior and senior year, when they've taken our CTE programs and our CTE concentrators in an area, once they've taken those skills as sophomores and juniors, then their junior and senior years are spent with community college courses. If you're a college-going student, then you pass the AccuPlacer, the readiness test for college, and you take college transfer courses. If you don't, then you take the certificate courses that we offer. So we have students who are going into the workforce who are graduating with mechatronics certificates, with technology certificates, with CNA certificates. And we also have college-going students who are graduating with 30 to 40 college transfer credit hours. So we've really been deliberate in how we've set up their junior and senior year to both support those college-going students and get them a leg up for their college careers, and our career-going students to get them a leg up for the certificates that they might need that can get them into a middle management instead of an entry-level position job.
All right, thank you for that. And we do have another question. This could be for anyone, I think, from Anson County. How do you interact with employers as a staff, and what contact do employers have with students? And then just kind of also as a follow-up, what type of schedule do you use to kind of, I'm assuming that's kind of with the employers and the students, how does that work out?
I'll start, and then Ms. LaBrie definitely can add on to this, but I would say beginning as freshmen, we're teaching these soft skills, which are embedded in literally everything we do, just like our lesson plans, just like career skill and their competencies. Little things like eye contact, shaking hands, walking to the right. Our students are exposed to pretty much all of our business partners who have participated in our YCC program. As freshmen, they get site visits, and just the little thing building there to the point where eventually they're getting mentorships and eventually they're getting internships. It's a scaffolding technique. We build on skills, and we invite speakers in. We have speakers very frequently. from various different career fields and industries. We also have a mentoring program with a local organization called HALA, which provides mentors who are community leaders in various different career fields who have, in small group, meet with the kids, build on those career or soft skills. And then finally, I would say we're exposing them by the time they're seniors to very real life scenarios as far as employability skills go. Ms. LaBrie, do you want to?
I would also say that in the CTE realm, we are bringing in leaders in our industry. I know I've brought in guest speakers that are the engineers that are going to be employing my students who stay in Anson County. They've met the leaders of the industry in our county. We bring in the employers that are in our county to meet our students and see our student projects and see what kinds of things our students are doing. So we've tried really hard to be deliberate in breaking down a barrier between a student and an employer and let the student understand if you build these soft skills that we're working with and you build these skills that we start with in the 9th grade, by the time you have the technical skills in the 11th and 12th grade, you've got the total package that you can offer an employer. And at that point, we've introduced them to enough adults and professional adults in their field that they're no longer intimidated by having a conversation with an employer. They're ready for the conversation and they're ready with the soft skills and they're ready with their technical skills to show off what they know and can do.
All right, thank you. And thank you for submitting your questions all. If there's any other questions, please do submit those in and let us know. I think also one thing, and I know you touched on this kind of throughout the presentation, but if Anson County, you can kind of address a little bit the changes that you've seen since implementing these employability skills throughout the program, the changes maybe you've seen in the students or some of the successes. I know you talked about that and how they're interacting, but if you can address that a little bit more, what's changed from before you had these implemented in the program until now when it's kind of throughout the entire program and the change you've seen in the students?
So this year we will graduate our first cohort who entered in as 9th graders, and the change in them literally brings tears to your eyes. Like when they go to graduate, I know I'm going to be, bawling like a little baby just because to see these kids to grow up into young adults has really been really special. Students who literally, didn't know how to be a student, to see them waking up at 6 in the morning in the summer to their internship at the local hospital has been really powerful. Students who, not to get any kind of specific, one student has a child coming in, and to see her, just tackling life with this opportunity that, was provided to her has been pretty powerful too. But as far as employability skills, the most powerful part is when you see the seniors talking to the freshmen and teaching the freshmen. It's no longer the teachers teaching them soft skills, it's the seniors who, we had to teach, but they're the ones telling them, walk to the right, or, that's not the YCC way, talking about language and yes, sir, and no, sir, and yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am. So to see our seniors model it, but not only that, now teaching it, I think that speaks volumes for how, big the change has come.
I can speak specifically in my department in engineering. I have a couple of students, one who is a female student who basically took engineering as a pathway because she didn't really want to do either of the other two, so it was kind of the default pathway that she entered into, who is now just super excited and has found her calling in life in electrical engineering and comes to me every day with, scholarship applications and recommendations to write, and been visiting colleges and discussing their engineering programs with me, and the fact that every once in a while she'll come back and say, well, we have much better equipment than they do, and how excited she is to say, let them know, oh, I know how to operate all of this equipment, I know how to do all of this, and be really impressive when she goes out on a college visit and a college tour. I also have a student who his goal was to get an apprenticeship with one of our major engineering companies in our area, and through his senior exit project that Ms. Bryan mentioned earlier, one of the judges on his panel was the director of the apprenticeship program, and he was so impressed with his presentation that he's got a personal invitation for a tour of their factory and a personal meeting with this gentleman about potential of being in that apprenticeship program. So we've seen some really great growth in those students who have just, as Mr. Burris said, gone after it and really taken advantage of the opportunities that we've been able to provide.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. I know we have a few minutes left, and I guess I wanted to, Robin, engage you again, and if maybe you could talk to kind of, Robin's obviously already heard their presentation a little bit and knows a little bit about what Anson County is doing, you know, since we've been working with both of them to do this webinar. But Robin, could you maybe talk about or address kind of how you see this model maybe of using the Employability Skills Framework and the competencies and using that, using all of that information and the resources and tools within the classroom and school setting, and how you see that maybe if you have other examples or other best practices for implementing that within a program?
Sure. Thanks, Angela. Thanks for the question. So Anson County, great stuff. I always look forward to hearing what you're doing. So in regards to the resources that are out there, and Anson County, they started with this as the competency models and talking about that foundational cross-cutting skills do in fact align and match the Employability Skills Framework that we've got with the Department of Education through on our website. The implementation where I see some things, some happening is the standards alignment, and in regards to not only state standards but also school level, school district standards, and aligning and embedding employability skill standards in the curriculum and throughout. The other thing too is that it's academic and technical education coursework. It's both areas, because we talk about college and career readiness, and it's not either or, but both and. It's also not just in high school, but also middle school and elementary school that we also see some things happening with that. Some recent legislation, the ESSA, the new act, and also the Workforce Investment Act and the Carl D. Perkins, there's been some recent work from the College and Career Readiness and Success Center that coded those three laws and found the intersections across the three and where the common pieces are. And sure enough, as you might imagine, employability skills rose to the top as being embedded in those laws. So with the new ESSA law, Every Student Succeeds Act law is looking at it from a well-rounded education. So that, I say that to you because then that even leverages and makes the case for making sure we have employability skills embedded. All
right, thank you, Robin, for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
And we did get one more question in. Mark, thank you for sending in all your questions. This is for Anson County. How do you handle transportation for students to get to and from internships?
We have not been able to provide transportation for our students for the most part. A lot of the students have done their internships over the summer with their own transportation. We have a couple of students who have done their internships on campus with us with our own IT department, especially in the IT pathway. They've done their internships on campus. If the students have had a problem with transportation, we've tried to work around that and give them something either here on campus or they've been able to adjust and do things during the summer. We had hoped to be able to provide transportation for all of our students, but it just didn't work out the way that we had kind of hoped it would. Basically, we've worked the best we can. We have students who, you know, we've gotten paperwork filled out where a couple of students can actually ride together to go to do the internship and ride back together. We've done the best we can with making it to where they can get it done and get it done when they've got the transportation that they needed. But that was probably one of the largest hurdles in getting our internships accomplished, was the transportation issue.
Thank you. Yeah, and I know just from reading other reports for grantees that especially in the more rural areas, transportation can be an issue, you know, for getting students to and from, and, you know, some grantees have found some creative ways to kind of get around that, maybe having the employers come into the schools and other things like that. So thank you for sharing what you're doing there. I think there's no more questions. So
Angela,
we're going
real quick, Angela, if I may, I'm very curious about how the YCC grantees are succeeding with assessing employability skills for student learning. So if there's any, you know, noteworthy practices and some good work going on, we'd be really interested in how either the teachers or employers are assessing employability skills.
Well, with every project that we do in most of the classrooms, especially mine, where they have to do presentations, I actually use a rubric that I assess, you know, did you make good eye contact? Did you introduce yourself properly? And so I'm looking for some of those employability skills within the presentations themselves. And then Ms. Bryan's actually going to talk to you a little bit about how during their senior projects, when we had someone from the community come in, but the students are being assessed based on their employability skills daily, pretty much, you know, when they enter the classroom, when they're talking to each other, and they are aware that we're looking for specific things.
And this is Ms. Bryan. I'll just piggyback off of that right quick. So for their senior project, I made note that we had a seniors board night. However, I should have went into a little bit more detail. And so basically, while they have this rubric, they will not be graded by the teachers who know them. They'll be graded by community members. And so this is the community members' opportunity to basically look at their employability skills and rate them based off the rubrics they have. And so usually it's around, each student has around 3 judges, and ideally at least one judge was a specialized in that pathway. So I might have, we have partners, and so I will have somebody from a local business in Anson who is IT. They work at an IT business. And so their 5 students that they see are more than likely going to be within the IT pathway. And so that allows them to have general community members who can provide feedback on the soft skills and things like that. However, then they're basically put to a higher level of expectations because now they have somebody who works in what they know. And so that's, once again, it's great when you have students who basically get invitations from organizations and companies because they're able to not only impress somebody from the community, but somebody who specializes in that and sees that on a constant basis.
All right, thank you for sharing that. Any other questions? Kind of, we got about a minute here. If you have any other questions, we do want to make sure we respond to those. There was a question about talking about additional resources they'd like to discuss. If those were for Robin in the Department of Education, send us an email at ycc@dol.gov, and we'll make sure she gets those, or she did put her email up as well. You can send those to her. If it's for adding resources to the YCC Community of Practice, send an email to ycc@dol.gov, and we'll make sure that those get posted there as well. I'm going to give Deborah and her team, as well as Robin, kind of a last minute kind of summary if they want to add anything at the end, but I'm going to go through my reminders before we do that. So here's our contact information if you need to reach us. And just one quick reminder, I know we've sent this out in an email as a save the date. The YCC National Grantee Conference, these are very tentative dates. We don't have approval yet, so don't make any plans. But April 25th and 26th of next year, we'll be back in Washington, D.C. again here at the Department of Labor. So mark your calendars for grantees if you're planning to come. And we are going to still have the third time we'll be having it, the YCC Student Video Contest. And we're working on getting that approved as well, so we'll send information out as soon as we have that. But keep in mind, if your students were interested or you're interested in being a part of that, that we are going to have that again, have that contest again to bring students to the conference. I don't believe any other additional questions, so thank you all for joining us. And before we wrap up, one more thing. There will be a survey, as I said earlier, that will pop up. Please do fill that out to let us know how we're doing. But I guess, Robin, do you have any last summary or kind of overview comments that you'd like to share?
Just thank you, Angela, for moderating, facilitating, for bringing the group together. So thanks for this day.
Thank you, Robin. In Anson County, anyone or everyone down there, kind of any last-minute things you want to share or share with the group about, employability skills and what you're doing down in Anson County?
We don't have any extra remarks. We just want to say thank you for allowing us to have the opportunity to share what we're doing in Anson County with everyone, and we just ask that y'all have a great holidays.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Anson County and everyone down there for joining us and sharing your information. Thank you, Robin, for taking the time to share on the webinar. So thank you, everyone. That will wrap us up for today. And again, follow up, you know how to contact us. And yes, have happy holidays, safe holidays, and we look forward to connecting with all of you in the new year. 2018 is almost here. So thank you, everyone, and have a great day.